I just want to say, sort of go through some of the things we've done so far. Before I do, I want to say a huge thanks to everyone who's really helped out on all of the work on the implementation program. I know that a large number of you are very heavily involved in a lot of the strands, plus also all the people who've helped out in all the strategy work that we did for the autumn statement. We're now at Christmas. We are aiming for day of the 1st of April, and we have achieved an awful lot. Not all of it will be immediately apparent because obviously some things are still being worked on and they're coming to fruition. But I just want to run through some of the big things. I'm sorry, the other thing I want to say is that with all of these things, a lot of the things will sound like they're very at the top. And that is partly because some of the really immediate things you need to do is to get the top structure in place and get the governance in place, and then work through the whole of the organisations to bring everyone on board. The first thing is that we have appointed a board, which is good. We've got a CEO in Sir Mark, a chair in Sir John. I'm delighted that Ian has just started with us. With executive chairs, we now, I think, have got 5 of the 9 appointed, or shortly to be appointed, and another 4 shortly to go on. Everyone should know exactly who is going to be their executive chair within the next 6 months, and there is a really strong plan to actually get that all done. We've had our first 2 board meetings, which were very lively. The board is very, very positive, very, very invigorated. They've got lots of really good ideas. One of the first things they want to do is try and get out and meet you all. We're going to have our board meeting in January. We're going to have it in Harwell, so they're actually going to be on site seeing a lot of the science. And then we're trying to organise a number of trips out. The implementation program is working really, really well. I'm not going to talk too much about the HR stuff because Michael and team are going to talk about it. But we're making very good progress with the COSOP process where 7,200 of you will automatically transfer on day 1. But also in the setup of the Research England, where they've got their council in place and David is building his team in Research England, but also the Strategy Director and some of the key posts under Ian. As I said, we managed to get our first set of advice to ministers in October, and this had a major impact on the outcome of the budget and the Industrial Strategy White Paper. And now we are sort of moving forward to transition to get to day 1. And as we've always said, that we see this as a 2-stage process where we transition everyone into the organisation, so we're up and running on day 1. There's an awful lot of work on the HR side, there's an awful lot of work on the governance side. So both in terms of working out the internal governance of UKRI, but also working with our colleagues in BAYS to ensure that going forward we have a very strong, positive, collegiate, friendly atmosphere with them to actually make sure we work through all of our issues of joint interest. As part of that, we're writing a very dry document called the framework document, but that will actually outline all of those issues. From then on, one of the key things that Ian is going to work on is working on what the transformation side of it looks like. And I don't know, Ian, if you want to say a few words about that.
I think all I can say about transformation at the moment is it's not a word that we should be afraid of. I mean, I think it's evolution. There's certainly nothing revolutionary planned. I think as we come together, my sense would be we should look at opportunities to do things better, opportunities to build our careers, opportunities to collaborate more, opportunities to be generous with one another, because I think that it's in that way that we will be more effective. And I particularly pick up on some of what Duncan was saying. To have more money, suddenly we become really rather relevant. And actually, it's quite apparent how much money we've got to spend. And I think that brings an obligation on us, which we, and I certainly intend to help, need to just respond to. So I'm looking at this as being a really great opportunity to develop ourselves and to develop our careers and to develop the way we go about business and to make work fun. It's really important that what we do supports. Certainly from the support function, supports all our scientists and gets the maximum out of this money. So coming from Cancer Research UK, where every pound that we spent was actually a pound we'd been given, I'm really aware of actually how important it is to make certain that we do everything with responsibility. So that's why I would say it's an opportunity.
And the other thing I would just add, especially in my point of the world, is I am so incredibly grateful for the comms teams, both in RCUK but across all the councils who've been working together incredibly collectively. One of the things we said we really wanted to achieve through UK Research and Innovation is have a single unified voice for research and innovation, both internationally and nationally. One of the reasons why Sir Mark can't be here today, he really wanted to be here, but he's unfortunately been summoned to Sweden to do something with some sort of Nobel Prize somewhere or other. So he's actually doing that at the moment. But the comms teams together have done a really good job of the new website, working together on a Twitter account, working together on thinking about our new brand. And that's another really good example of very close cross-council working to actually make sure that the UK Research and Innovation has the best possible start.
I'd pick up on two other things that Rebecca said. One, you mentioned the board are going out to Harwell for the board meeting in January, and they are coming to Swindon at some stage for the board meeting as well, I think. Is that February?
February.
So, they very much want to get out here. And the second is related to Swindon. We have made really good progress on a new London office. So we are not in a position to announce exactly what we're doing yet in London, but there has been some good progress, and so at some stage we will be able to say more about that. But that's also important. From my perspective, it's great to be here. Thank you for the enormous amount of work that's gone on today to this date. I'm sort of the fraud coming here after about 2 weeks, and I'm standing up here. But I do know there's been a huge amount of work to get us to this stage. So, unless there are any questions, which there are, there's a question. And if you think my eyesight is that good, Mariki, then... So, there is a question. Do you see all the individuality of the councils being dissolved, or will some parts be retained? Why don't we ask one of the research exec chairs to take that?
It's a good question, very fair question. I think I would expect to see an awful lot of the individuality of the existing councils to be retained. I think when we first started on this journey, we had quite a lot of interchange, in fact with Joe Johnson directly, from the chief executives of the current research councils. And I think one thing we said was that a great strength of the current system was the 7 disciplinary facing councils, that we actually had different communities with different ways of working, and that was a real strength to preserve that. And I think Duncan is absolutely right that what we need to do now is make the most of the opportunity of doing better working together. I think that was the perception that Paul Nurse had, and I think a lot of it, as Duncan said, was we had to work very hard to make sure our own disciplines were healthy, that we were having to put the cross-disciplinary working sort of on the back burner the whole time, and that was certainly my perception too. So I think the new world needs to have both the disciplinary strength that we already have, and I hope we will retain, as well as making sure these opportunities for cross-council working are really taken up. And I think the new strategy fund, emerging strategies, I forget, strategic priorities fund, is a fantastic opportunity to do exactly that. So to see where we do have sort of scientific problems at the interfaces between disciplines, and there are more and more of those that are becoming apparent, then we should really make the best of the opportunity to work together. So my answer is absolutely retain the disciplinary strengths, but build on those to make more of the combinations.
Fantastic. So we recognise as well that there are some other areas that we need to do more on. So there's more still to be done on brand. I mean, I think Rebecca's talked about comms, and there's still quite a lot of work to be done on brand. There's lots still to be done on IT and on some of the sort of the research frameworks in terms of grant systems and things like that. So that's all work in progress. As somebody who's just arrived and got an address of EPSRC, and you go to Bayes and they sort of say, well, you can't see your calendar. We know there's lots of stuff to be done there. But the most important thing to do is about us as people. So we are going to dedicate about the next 20 minutes or so to Michael and his team taking you through a lot of the detail as to where we are now in terms of people transferring from existing councils into UKRI. And then at the end of this, there will be some workshops that you can actually go on. We'll obviously take questions if there are questions. So I'm going to hand over to Michael, who's going to, with his team, lead us through that. And then I'll be back at the end for final questions and the wrap-up.